Welcome to Biztech's CEO Conversation Show, the show where we engage industry leaders to share insights into how they run and grow their businesses. Now, today our conversation is with Mr. Goh Soon Sinn, the founder, chairman, and group CEO of Waterco from Australia. It wholesales, exports, and manufactures equipment and accessories for swimming pools, spa baths, rural pumps, and water treatment industries. Mr. Goh, welcome to the show.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Now, could you give us an overview then of Waterco and how you started in the industry?
Well, I started in the industry as far back as 1976 when I learned how to build swimming pool in Malaysia. I was with the family company and we were in the water treatment business, but on the civil works, mainly for the government, building reservoirs, water treatment plant. As a contractor, the civil works are always contracted out to local builders. And that was my family business. But at the same time, I've been thinking of doing something for myself. And the swimming pool line has some common grounds with building reservoirs. Of course, a reservoir, 1 million liters, and the swimming pool is about 50 to 100,000 liters. But what I have learned from Australia is that the swimming pool was built as a package deal. You walk into a potential pool owner and say, look, I could build a swimming pool for you. You don't have to go and see an architect. You don't have to see a mechanical engineer who would design the water treatment aspect. And you don't have to look for a builder. We do it on a turnkey basis. Sign on the bottom line and we'll deliver a pool for you. At that time, it was very roughly the cost of a car. So that may seem a lot of money, but for owners in house owners in Malaysia, it's cheap. At the time, I would call it about possibly 50,000 ringgit.
Okay.
You put on a swimming pool, your house is worth millions. So, that is cheap. And you have a private swimming pool in your backyard. Now, that is very common in Australia. In Australia, they have about probably 1 in 10 households have a swimming pool. In the area where land is a bit more abundant, you probably have a swimming pool in 1 in every 2 houses. And even our staff, what I'm saying is, the common working people can afford a swimming pool. So it's a very different lifestyle. Still restricted to people who have the ability to buy a house with a large enough garden to fit in the swimming pool.
Absolutely. And why did you start in Sydney? So you started in Malaysia, but then you moved to Australia and then started Waterco in Sydney.
Yes, I was a student in the 1970s in Sydney, and I did my accounting degree there. Got back to Malaysia to help my father in the business. But after a while, I thought I still missed the lifestyle in Australia and decided to migrate there. When I migrated there exactly towards the end of 1980, I need to think of something to do. And then naturally, I keep in touch with the people in the swimming pool industry in Australia and find that there was a market gap for products that I could bring into Australia to trade. And that was PVC pipes and fittings. Prices were very high, possibly because there were 4 manufacturers and they have it to themselves. So I noticed that I could buy at a very, very low price in Taiwan, imported the pipes made to Australian specification. And from there on, I just grew the business from pipes and fittings to PVC valves, and it just went on.
And then, so could you give us a perspective of your product and service offerings today? Because you have everything from different brands, from a solar panel, Zane Solar Systems, to Swim Art, to a water shop business in Malaysia.
Yes, naturally, I was very keen to expand the business. And if we were already selling pipes and fittings to a customer, and you asked yourself, what else can I sell to him? So in fact, the next step was to bring in pumps and filters to sell to the same customer. And that's how the range slowly broadened up to where we are today. And the concept's still the same. We aspire to supply everything possible related to swimming pool. Possibly we would not go into building material for the pool. I think that's sort of stretching it over, a little bit over. We just keep it to equipment. And while we may start off as a trader for some of the equipment, we end up making them ourselves. But up to today now, almost everything that we sell to the builders are made by us, with the exception of a few items.
Okay, how did you then get into Zone Solar Systems? Because your swim art business is very clear. You're the market leading brand in pool care industry in Australia and New Zealand. You've got 68 retail stores. You've got 9 mobile franchises. So that's a very clear thing. How did you get into the solar systems business?
Well, back in the 1980s, the mid-80s, I would say, somebody approached us. In fact, we were a dealer to install solar heating for swimming pools. It's very specific for swimming pools only. And the way the swimming pool water is very corrosive. The solar heater that you may understand more of at the moment is made out of copper absorbers, and they corrode very fast. So it's not suited for swimming pool. So that's how we got into solar heating back in the mid-80s. And they're meant to be plastic or non-metallic heaters. All you need to do is to raise the temperature by possibly around 10 degrees, 15 degrees, and you can do that. You can do that with just, in a way, plastic tubes. So that comprised the solar heating for swimming pool. Back here, I see a market after being in this area for such a long time. I understand about plastic far more than the average person, I suppose. And to find that to replace product with plastic, there are advantages, but there are also limitations on plastic. But what got me interested in is really the hot water system, acronym HWS, the hot water system. In the solar industry is something which we understand very well. So the business was available for sale in Malaysia. We just acquired it a few years ago. It's you may know it's called the Solar Mate. They've been around for a very long time. And the Solar Mate been around since 1980. It's a very mature industry now, solar heating for household. So that is much more competitive than before. If you don't reach a certain level of sales, you find it hard to survive. So here we are into a very competitive area. But as I said, we are very interested in the hot water system, and we'll be looking for opportunities to buy business linked to it.
Okay, so interesting. So I want to ask you about that in terms of, because you've got a global footprint of 40 countries. Over 40 countries, you've grown your business through a mix of organic growth and acquisitions as well. You've just mentioned some of the acquisitions. You've also made acquisitions in the UK to grow the business. Tell us about that.
Yes, in fact, the business in UK were supplying filters to us in Australia back in the mid-80s. But after a while in the same business, like all businesses, if we don't change with the times, the business gets competitive, it matures, you get more competition. So the owner of that business was under some pressure. So we have in fact talked about bringing that manufacturing to Malaysia back in the late 80s. But the owner declined, and from there on, we just went out on our own to build filters, fiberglass filters for the swimming pool industry. And subsequently, that the business got into trouble in a way that they find that the sales were dropping, the cost were going up. So all the usual signs of a business that's sort of maturing and there's no changes made. And they asked us whether we are interested to buy them. That's how we ended up owning the brand called Lecron. They were the former owners. So we built on the brand in UK, and we brought the manufacturing process down to Malaysia as well. So that helped us to grow the manufacturing site here in Malaysia. But that brand name is very well known in Europe, in UK and Europe. So that helped us to get more into the European market too.
You've got a global footprint, but the pandemic has hurt your business. Tell us about how it's impacted your business.
Well, it's affected us in the way that you wouldn't expect it, I would say. I mean, I went through a time like this. I just talked a couple of minutes on the same way it affected us in 2008, the global financial crisis, where when you look at the share market, the way it crashed, you think the world is coming to an end. All business is going to fall apart, right? You have that feeling. Yes. And then, of course, that worried us too when the pandemic hit us. I said, look, you know, this is bad news, right? Nobody would turn around and say, oh, this is great, you know. It's really bad news. But in a strange way, like the global financial crisis, people stay at home. They don't go out. They don't go and have expensive dinner. They cut down on their dinners. And in this pandemic, they cut down on traveling. Yes. Not every single people are affected by the pandemic financially, that is. Yeah, there are a lot of people. Possibly a very significant part of them still have the job, or the government servants have the job to start with, as an example. Those with very solid business, they have the job, have money to spend.
Also, in an Australian context, Mr. Goh, I think one of with the 200 billion in stimulus with the JobKeeper and JobSeeker programs, basically most Australians were impacted very mildly by this downturn.
That's correct. And strangely enough, the same effect took place in the UK and in the USA as well. That group of people who do have the extra dollar to spend it on improving their house, the backyard. So they spend more time at home. They want a better swimming pool. They improve. The first thing that really hit us in terms of growth was heater for the swimming pool. You know, they would normally be happy to say, oh, well, it's too cold to swim now and go and do something else. But this time they want to heat up the pool so that they can swim in it more.
I see.
So demand went up. Demand, this is not just Australia, in the UK and in the USA. And it affects positively, not only us, but the whole industry. In fact, it's to the same level there where there was a shortage of products. And in fact, for the builder, which is our customer, the pool builders, they would have to tell the customer, I can only build your pool, but you have to wait 1 year. They got a long list of customers waiting for pools to be built.
Wow, so it's a really boom time for your industry.
Yes, it's boom time for that industry. Now, this is for the pool builders. We service the pool shop, their maintenance itself. That's quite normal in a way. It probably went up a little bit, maybe 10%, but the pool business went up by 30 to 50%. On the average, our business went up by 20%. Some of our peers, they're talking about 30 to 40% increase in their business. So it's a very strange phenomenon.
Now, can I ask you, you have got basically water in your blood. You're from a family, even in Malaysia, that was involved in all of this. But water is a problem across ASEAN in terms of clean water, supply of water, and so forth. Australia obviously is sort of a gold standard in terms of clean living and clean technology. What have you done in terms of penetrating the market in ASEAN?
Well, we have a very strong interest on the water treatment side. Now, the products that we make are related to water treatment. Just that in this case of the swimming pool industry, it relates to a body of water where the water is recirculated continuously to take out impurities that have gone into the pool by way of outside environment like sand and grit, and in the case where there's a big swimming load, people would pollute the pool. So it's our job to keep the pool pristine so that you can see the bottom of the pool. It has to be crystal clear. As you know, when you fill up a pool with water with tap water, you can't see the bottom. After the filters have done the job, you could see the bottom of the pool. So we have a very strong interest in water treatment. Quite a few of our products are into the water treatment industry. As much as 15% now has gone into the water treatment sector. As an example, as I was said earlier, the water in the swimming pool is more corrosive than normal corrosive in the way it has a higher level of chlorine. But just a bit of sideline, they put electrolysis in there to convert salt to chlorine, so they make it even more corrosive. So all the metal products like the stainless steel leather, many places don't use them at all. Everything there is non-metallic. Anything that comes in contact with the swimming pool water. Now, having now understand how to make products out of non-metals, mainly with fiberglass and engineering plastic, we have developed quite a few products that will be able to handle seawater. So we do have quite a few projects now that we have supplied to large filters to clean up seawater for desalination. Just before the water goes through the reverse osmosis filter, it has to be quite clean, otherwise it just clog it up. So our filters clean the water up before it goes into the RO filter, so to speak, before you get pure water coming out.
So interesting. So that will open up a lot of new markets out there. The first thing that comes to mind to me is if you talk about desalination, it's obviously the Middle East.
Yes, we have a few projects in the Middle East. Yeah, once in a while, not every year, but that's good project, good size project. We love them. You know, it's keep our team very busy.
Now, Mr. Goh, so looking at your business, you've been listed since on the ASX since 1989. I checked your market cap today; it's 114 million. But your PE ratio is very low; it's below 5. You've also been steadily buying back your shares. Does that then indicate that you think that your company is undervalued?
Yes, I would say it's undervalued. So, you know, if there are shareholders out there that are keen to cash out, yes, we are be interested to buy back some shares, but there are not many for sale. You can say fortunately or unfortunately, depending on how you look at it.
But are you thinking of, because you're a majority shareholder, are you thinking of taking the business private at all? Because obviously to take it private now is a very low cost to you.
Well, yes and no. I mean, you know, we think there's still opportunities there to merge or acquire another business. If a business come along and say, look, I need about 100 million to buy the business, I can't certainly borrow 100 million from the bank, but the bank is willing to lend, I would say without much thoughts, they would be willing to lend us 50, 60 million. So we will probably raise that balance on the share market and do a placement out there, or if need be, do a rights issue. So that would be useful to have a public company able to raise funds from the public when the time comes. But if that opportunity do not arise, we just stay where we are and keep going. It's just hard to predict what the future is in that sense.
So, Mr. Goh, then in that case, is there any specific type of companies that you're looking for to buy?
All is opportunistic, you know. There are companies in Australia, there are companies in UK. As I speak, there are people putting up their hands and saying, you know, we're doing well, but I had enough. You know, I just do not know what comes next after the pandemic. So when you got this sort of anxiety, people sell.
Yes.
And that's the, I suppose that's in the Western world, I guess in Malaysia, in the Asian market, people say, I will keep it for the next generation. I could do that too. I'm not sure myself, but
are you, because you've got a child working in the business, are you planning to leave this to the next generation?
Well, I could, but that's why I would say I do not know what comes up next. But if somebody put a sizable amount on the table, say, look, you know, so as to use the speech, make an offer that I cannot refuse, I'll consider.
Okay, that's, you know, always the businessman. But so let me ask you something, Mr. Goh. You've built this business of over 40 years. What are the 3 smartest things that you have done in this 40 years to grow the business?
Well, I would say that started with starting to pay far more attention to the right type of people who can help me manage the business. I used to be very hands-on, but I realized to do to cover the spread of business that we have today, I need very reliable people. So I have been able to retain a couple of these people, and they have helped me improve the business, notably in the UK and in the US, where they're really far away. This pandemic has been sort of a test period for me. I've been sort of locked down in Malaysia now for about 18 months. And all I had was email and Zoom conferences with them. And they're running the business. And UK and US, both of them, has came in with record level of profits without me over there overlooking their shoulder. So I guess if I do pay more attention to recruiting and retaining right people, they will go a long way to growing the business.
Okay, what else? What else do you think? So obviously talent has been some of the smart things that you've done right. How about when you were scaling the business? And when I did the research on your business, you made, obviously, as you also mentioned during the interview, you made opportunistic buys or M&A or acquisitions of companies, the UK top company being an example. Would you think that that was one of the smart things that you did?
Well, in fact, one thing came up in my mind now. It's a very recent happening in a way that we pay very close attention to automation. We're locked down in Malaysia, as you know, and we cannot bring in foreign workers. So the our Malaysian businesses are very reliant on foreign workers. In this sense, we looked hard at our business and we found ways to automate it to some degree. We got in a couple of robots, and we think we'll be bringing in more robots to help us reduce the labor content. So we have now been considering using good software to reduce paperwork trail. So we look at computers, like all the internal controls, accounting internal controls. We think that be very helpful for us to use the right software and therefore get rid of the old ways of, I guess, all the checks and balances. So there again, we will save some, I guess, clerical work, labor hours. So that process is ongoing. And I'm driving that as much as I can so that we be able to cope with the higher level of output with the same number of people.
So Goh, those are smart things that you've done. But how about things where perhaps you would have done differently if you look back at your 40 years? Some of the mistakes perhaps that you've made that you would have done differently with hindsight.
Oh, absolutely. Now I couldn't, with hindsight, I can see that I should have paid more attention to recruiting the right people and not be so hands-on. I guess that comes from after so many years when I've been so hands-on into the business, and I think I would have been much better if I did pay attention to human resources, as I say.
Mr. Goh, it's been a fascinating conversation, but before we leave, would you like to leave us with any final thoughts?
Well, all of us are wondering what's happening next in the world. We never thought pandemic would have been this way when it hit us. So I guess, you look at trying to impose stress tests on your business and see, can we survive the next disaster that hit us? I don't know. It's really always some uncertainty there. And therefore, I guess I always tell our guys when they look at the businesses, the way they manage it, I say, you've got to assume things will be tough. If you keep thinking that way, I think the chances are you'll come out unscathed. Well, I wouldn't say unscathed, at least you will survive.
Mr. Goh, thank you very much for taking your time to be on the show.
Thank you for having me.
I'm Brian Fernandez, and I've been speaking to Mr. Goh Soon Sinn, the founder, chairman, and group's chief executive officer of Waterco of Australia, on Biztech's CEO Conversation show. This video will be on our Facebook and LinkedIn sites, as well as our website, www.biztech.asia. Please like and subscribe to our various platforms. Thanks again for tuning in.